Uh, Good evening. Now is the time and place for a meeting of the Beaverton Planning Commission. Members of the public can view the meeting by clicking the link in the Planning Commission agenda webpage or by using webinar ID 161-763-7242, passcode 99999. If you would like to speak during the visitor portion of the agenda or provide testimony on an agenda item, please use the raise hands feature in your Zoom menu bar. If calling in using the 669-254-5252 number, press 9 to alert the chair you would like to speak. For the record, I will do a roll call, which members are present and participating this evening. We have Commissioner Winter, Lawler, Glenwinkle, and Ellis. Let the record show Commissioner McCann and Commissioner Akal are excused and absent tonight. The visitor section of the agenda is an opportunity for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on a non-agenda issue or item. Anyone wishing to speak should indicate this to staff and wait for your name to be called. Does anyone wish to address the Planning Commission on a non-agenda issue? Okay. Staff has stated we do not have any visitors, so we can move on to commission communications. Any communication from commissioners? Okay. Seeing none, staff communication.
Thank you, Chair Nye. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Anna Splatinsky, the Planning Division Manager here in the Community Development Department in Beaverton. I just want to give you a heads up that the State of the City address, which will be on March 13th, will be held in person at the Research. And you can sign up on the city website to receive free tickets, but you do need to do that in advance. And you can get more details and RSVP instructions at www.beavertonoregon.gov/SOTC. The Research is a very cool building, so it'll be, I think, probably great to have the State of the City in person and at that location. And that's all I have.
All right, just making a note of that in calendar. I lost my script, just a second. So we can move on to new business. The first item on the agenda is the application for the Panzer Collector TSP update case file CPA 2022-0009 from 11/30/20. Continued from 11/30/22. The Planning Commission's decision to recommend the adoption of the comprehensive plan amendment must be based on the considerations of 1, a statewide planning goal and administrative rules adopted under ORS 197, 2, the applicable federal or state statutes or rules, and 3, applicable plans and rules adopted by Metro, and 4, the city's comprehensive plan, including quasi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan amendments, comprehensive plan section 1.5.1.a. Testimony and arguments and evidence must be directed towards the approval criteria and other criteria or in the comprehensive plan or development code that the speaker believes to apply to the application. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to allow the Planning Commission and other interested parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Anyone who submits written comments or gives oral testimony has standing to appeal this decision. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the city to respond to the issue may preclude an action for damages in circuit court. State and local law require commissioners to make certain disclosures. The Planning Commission must be impartial, and members shall not have any bias or personal or business interest in the outcome of the application. To these ends, the following questions are asked. Does any member of the Planning Commission have a potential or actual conflict of interest, ex parte contacts, or site visits to declare? I will start with Commissioner Winter.
I did not make a specific site visit. I'm familiar with this area from previous developments I had, so I had no contact.
Okay. Commissioner Ellis.
No specific visits either, although that's a common drive-by area for me, so I've been there frequently.
Okay. Commissioner Lawler.
No to all three.
Commissioner Glenwinkle.
No to all three.
Okay, and no to all three from me as well. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the right of any commissioner to participate in this hearing? Okay, let the record show no response. The order of the public hearing tonight will be as follows. The city staff will give a presentation followed by commissioners' questions of staff. Then each member of the public in support of the application can speak for up to 5 minutes. Members in the public opposed to the application can then speak for 5 minutes, and members of the public who are neither in support nor opposed will have 5 minutes to speak. The Planning Commission will then hear any final comments from staff. We will now begin with the staff presentation.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair Nye. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Steve Regner. I'm a senior planner with the City of Beaverton. And the application before you tonight is the Panzer Collector Transportation System Plan Update, case file CPA 2022-0009. The request tonight consists of an addition to a new proposed collector to Beaverton's Transportation System Plan. This request is associated with the annexation case file Annex 2022-0007, which is approved by City Council in December of 2022. And the image here, you can see the area in red is the area to be annexed into the City of Beaverton. And the green dashed line shows the alignment of the proposed future collector. This is a quasi-judicial action. So the action taken by Planning Commission tonight will be a recommendation of City Council. A quick background on the Transportation System Plan. It is located within our comprehensive plan within Chapter 6, which is our transportation element. It is a regulatory document that allows the city to demonstrate compliance with various state, regional, and local requirements. It consists of goals, policies, actions, maps, and projects, all dedicated to improving the transportation system for the city of Beaverton. Currently, the area to be annexed into the city is not included within the transportation system plan, which is why we are having this action here tonight. Washington County, just like City of Beaverton, conducts or prepares a regional model to analyze current and projected future growth, as well as vehicle trips and vehicle patterns to identify needs for future streets. And Washington County's transportation system plan currently identifies this collector and this alignment as being needed to be constructed with future development to ensure an efficient and safe transportation network. As I mentioned, this collector is not currently within the city's TSP, as is outside our jurisdiction. But with the annexation, it will become part of the city's jurisdiction. And therefore, we will need to add this collector to our TSP. That will make sure that we are remaining consistent with the regional model, and it will ensure that this street does get constructed with future development. The actual amendments to the comprehensive plan are limited to 2 maps. First, here you can see figure 6.4, the functional classification map. Functional classifications are, in essence, kind of zoning for streets. They identify essentially the vehicle throughput, how much volume of traffic the streets can carry in response to the regional model, going all the way from arterials down to neighborhood streets. It's a very small component of this map, so I've highlighted the inset in orange. Zooming in, you can see the green dashed line, identifying that in the future, a collector will be constructed in this alignment. The second of 2 maps being amended to this request is figure 6.6, titled Future Streets, where right-of-way is planned for more than 2 lanes. That is exactly what this map is, where streets are anticipated to be more than 2 lanes. This identifies that situation. This street is identified to be a collector of 2 or 3 lanes. That essentially means it could be a 2-lane collector, or in some cases, there can be an additional turn lane that will be identified through future developments, traffic impact analysis, looking at traffic volumes and traffic patterns to understand if a turn lane is required and where it should be located. But this map essentially identifies this street will be either 2 or 3 lanes moving into the future. Based on the findings in the staff report, responses to state, regional, and local approval criteria, staff recommends tonight that the Planning Commission recommend approval of Panzer TSP update CPA 2022-009 to Beaverton City Council for future consideration. That concludes staff's presentation, and we are prepared to answer any questions the commission may have.
Great. Do any commissioners have questions of staff? Commissioner Glenn Winkle.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. One of my questions is this road location approximate, or has it been designated for this particular route for a specific reason? It does cut across, I think, 6 different parcels. So I'm just wondering, one, is it fixed in that location? And 2, was it considered to do more of like a grid system design so that we weren't creating so many triangular and difficult to develop lots by cutting across this way? Or how was it designed?
Well, so that was evaluated through the county process, and the alignment is approximate. You can see on the west side, it does align with the intersection to the west. That's really critical to make sure we have that alignment so we have turning conflicts. And the baseline connection, essentially, it's equidistant between Stepping Stone Drive and 179th. So this is not a precise engineered alignment. It is just those approximate locations. When the actual development occurs, there might be differences in the curve of the street or how long the street is relative. So this really just shows an approximate location. As far as developability, the site as a whole is about 36 or 37 acres. So these are really large parcels. So I think there's not nearly as much concern about how this triangle is going to prohibit a future grid. This is more focusing on where these 2 connection points are to make sure that they don't conflict with any access requirements for arterial. So that was the main focus of this alignment, is my understanding.
Okay. And then my next question is probably for the city attorney. But I was wondering, is designating a road like this through these parcels, is that going to be considered taking through eminent domain, or how does that work when we're impacting the future development of those sites?
Well, that's a good question. So we aren't actually taking any property for the dedication of the road at this time. And this is a designation, essentially, that carries over from an existing designation in Washington County's TSV. So we're really not changing anything. We're just making a consistent carryover, so to speak, from the county to the city, carrying over their plan and their process to ours.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, Commissioner Ellis.
Hey there, thanks, Steve. Appreciate the information. This is a lot of new person questions here, so apologies up front for the ignorance.
No problem.
But just to be clear, this alignment and this plan, this is largely us. The proposal is largely to rubber stamp, for all intents and purposes, the Washington County's plan, correct?
I mean, that's one way of framing it. Essentially, it's acknowledging a regional transportation model that has been accepted by cities and counties. And so it really is reflecting that regional model. Yes.
Okay, awesome. And then this road alignment here, this is a future proposal. Are there any current bidders or other development that would take advantage of having this alignment approved?
Well, what I can say is that part of the reason that this property is annexing is because I do believe there is interest in future development. This alignment does a couple of things by including this on there. One, like I said before, it does ensure that this street gets built. If this line's not on the map, we lose a little bit of leverage about where this street can go. So we do lose a little bit of ability to ensure that this regional model gets impacted. So I think that's the most important thing, is that it benefits the city most of all, I would say.
Okay, and that was actually my next question, which is what happens if we don't do this? So I appreciate that. Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. And we do not get these types of amendments very often. I don't think we've done a TSP update in over a decade. So this is new for a lot of us.
Cool.
And Commissioner Waller.
Thank you. I'm just want to clarify, just for the kind of the record in general, that I see 181st Avenue and 182nd Avenue abut the property. And might those be extended at the time as a local street, for example, when development occurs?
That's likely. The transportation system plan, the functional classification maps, and what we are required to transfer from the county to the city, the collector street is the lowest level of functional classification. Typically, our local streets aren't drawn out precisely. A lot of times we will have local connectivity maps showing the future connection, but we also have connectivity requirements in our engineering design manual and our development code that will most likely require the extension of 181st and 182nd. We'll, of course, need to see the actual development plans to be able to speak with true authority, but that certainly would be the most likely outcome, yes.
And is that land south of this site, is that still in unincorporated Washington County, or is that also the city of Beaverton?
Everything in gray here, so everything kind of to the east, south, and west is the county. You can see this blue line with this light pale yellow here. That's actually city jurisdiction.
Okay. Is there any problem with, when this site develops, coordinating that with Washington County to make sure that those local road connections are developed during the time, at the time that subdivision is proposed here?
Typically, that's not an issue. When development comes in, we work quite closely with Washington County, whether it is working with them. Baseline and 185th are both county roads. So we will meaning they're under their jurisdiction. So we will already be working very closely with them for design, frontage improvements, access, potentially signalizing some of these intersections, as well as local street connectivity. So when this property does develop, Washington County will still play a very integral role in access and connectivity.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions from the commission, we can move on to public testimony.
Thank you.
We are now in the public testimony portion of the meeting. We will call for I don't think there are groups to do that. So for those viewing via Zoom webinar, please communicate by using your raised hand feature in the Zoom menu bar. If calling in, press 9 to alert the chair you would like to speak. I'm kind of assuming that there is none. Okay, just heard from staff that there is no public testimony. So let's see, I think I can skip all of that part of the script. Staff, I assume there's no need to add any final comments.
I don't have anything else to add. Thank you, Mel.
Okay. Robin.
Unless I didn't introduce myself earlier, sorry. Robin McIntyre, Assistant City Attorney. Chair and Commissioners, unless you have any other questions of me, I have no further comments.
Right. Okay. Well, with that, when the final comments complete, I will close the public hearing, and as standard procedure, I will randomly poll commissioners to state their conclusions on the application. I will start with Commissioner Winter.
Fairly straightforward piece of standard text we always deal with. It sounds, I remember staff saying it's been a decade since we touched the TSP. It seems like it's been since more frequent than that, but I'll take his word for it. This is pretty straightforward commission business. I will be in favor of it.
Okay, Commissioner Lawler,
I believe it meets approval criteria and I'm in support of it.
okay, Commissioner Glenwinkle,
I agree. It's straightforward, meets the approval criteria. I support it.
okay, Commissioner Ellis,
I agree that it meets the approval criteria, so I'm in support of it.
okay. And I agree with my fellow commissioners. So is there a motion? Maybe Commissioner Lawler,
Sure. I move that based on the facts and findings presented, that we should approve or recommend to the city council approval of the comprehensive plan to add a proposed collector to the transportation system plan at the site illustrated in the staff report dated, I think, January 11th.
great. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second it.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, I will do a vote by roll call. When your name is called, say yay or nay. Commissioner Winter,
Aye.
Commissioner Lawler,
Aye.
Commissioner Glenwinkle,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis.
I
And I vote aye as well. Motion passes unanimously. The Planning Commission's decision, the Planning Commission's recommendation will be memorialized in the land use orders that will be provided to all parties that provide oral and written testimony. The Planning Commission's recommendation will be forwarded to City Council. Council will hold a hearing and make a final decision on this application. So we have a second item under new business. Oh, this is the new business, excuse me. Second item on the agenda is the application for Allen Boulevard modification of LD 2021-0002, case file LD is 2022-0021. The applicant has the burden of providing that the applications are consistent with the Beaverton Development Code, comprehensive plan, and any applicable Beaverton Development Code provision. The criteria that must be addressed in this hearings are Beaverton Development Code sections 40.45.15.2.c, replat 1, and 50.95.7, modification of a decision. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards these approval criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or development code that the speaker believes to apply to the application. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to allow the Planning Commission and other interested parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Anyone who submits written comments or gives oral testimony has standing to appeal this decision. Failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the city to respond to the issue may preclude an action for damages in circuit court. State and local law require commissioners to make certain disclosures. To these ends, the following questions will be asked. Does any commissioner have a potential or actual conflict of interest or ex parte contact or site visits to declare? Commissioner Winter.
No, I'm very familiar with this process and this particular plot area.
Commissioner Ellis.
no to all.
Commissioner Lawler.
No to all three.
Commissioner Glenwinkle.
3.
And no to all three for me as well. Does any member of the audience wish to question a commissioner about an ex parte contact or site visits or challenge the right of a commissioner to participate in this hearing? Okay, but the record show no response. The order of the public hearing tonight will be as follows. The city staff will give a presentation followed by questions of staff from the commission. The applicant will be given 20 minutes for a presentation followed by the commissioners' questions of the applicant. Then members of the public can speak for up to 5 minutes each. After public testimony, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The planning commission will then hear any final comments from staff. So we can now begin with the staff presentation.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Let me share my screen for you quickly. Great. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chair Nye. Thank you, Planning Commissioners. My name is Brittany Gaeta. I'll be providing staff's presentation on the Allen Boulevard modification of LD 2021-0002. This is application number LD 2022-0021. The site associated with this modification request is located on the south side of Southwest Allen Boulevard, east of Highway 217. And the site is comprised of 4 tax lots, which total around 17.4 acres. And this site was previously approved for development of a hotel, fuel canopy, and retail uses back in February 2022. And one of those applications that was approved was a replat 1, which was intended to consolidate the 4 tax lots, which is the topic of our discussion about the modification request this evening. The applicant requests a modification to a condition of approval associated with that replat 1 application pertaining to the requirement to record a final plat which completes the lot consolidation process for the site. The condition of approval requires that the final plat be recorded prior to issuance of the site development permit. However, another approved application, which was the Design Review 3, included conditions of approval as well that required certain improvements associated with the development to be completed prior to recordation of the final plat. So these conditions conflict with one another, and at the end of the day, they prevent the issuance of the site development permit itself. So the applicant is not able to move forward with the development beyond any factor within their control. Therefore, a modification of the replat 1 approval is needed, and the applicant is only requesting a change to resolve this one conflict with the conditions of approval. No other changes are being requested this evening. And specifically, the applicant is requesting to modify condition B2 of the replat 1, which requires recordation of the final plat prior to site development permit issuance. And the proposed modification is seen at the bottom of the screen. It would change the required timing of recordation of the final plat until prior to issuance of final occupancy for any building approved under the previously approved Design Review 3 application. So it just delays this process until a later time, which complies with the Design Review 3 conditions of approval for those improvements that need to be done before that process can be complete. So the proposed modification meets all approval criteria for the replat 1 application, and staff also determined that it meets all requirements for a modification of decision pursuant to section 50.95 of the Development Code. So based on the facts and findings of the staff report dated January 11th, and also the supplemental memo dated January 18th that was provided to all this afternoon, staff recommends approval of LD 2022-0021, subject to the conditions of approval at the end of the report. And this concludes staff's presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the applicant will now have 20 minutes for a presentation. Please begin by introducing yourself and stating your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jen Rinkus. I'm with Basinger Partners Architecture. I'm the land use planner for this project and for the previous application requesting modification of. Don't have a formal PowerPoint presentation. Basically, what Brittany showed sums it up. It's for that first phase of development on Allen Boulevard. Like she mentioned, there was 2 conflicting conditions. The design review requires infrastructure be put in, things like utilities be installed before we record the final plat. That's typically how that is done because We draw utilities on a paper plan, and when they get out in the field, they may have to adjust their location by a couple of feet either way if they run into site conditions. And then those utilities require easements to be recorded on the plat, and it's easiest and most efficient to do those easements after the utilities are installed in case they run into any field conditions that require those utilities to be slightly altered when they're being installed. That way we don't have to go back and alter easements later. The conflict is that the design review conditions, like Brittany said, call for those things to be installed before the plat is recorded, but the plat, the second condition says that those things have to be, the plat has to be recorded before we can issue the site permit. And we actually need the site permit to be able to install those utilities. So it's kind of a chicken before the egg. So we're requesting that that requirement just be modified so that we can pull the site permit, get construction underway. We're very, very close. I'm sure everybody wants an update on that. And we are down to the final couple conditions to check off the list. And the appeal period, obviously, for this review to end if it's approved. And we'll be ready to start construction on the site. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Okay, terrific. Do any commissioners have questions of the applicant? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Let's see. So we are now ready for the public testimony portion of the hearing. We will, sorry, I'm skipping a little bit of this because I don't think we have much participation. I'm hearing from staff, we have none. So I think I'll skip the Zoom webinar section. Staff has stated we don't have any public testimony, so we will also skip the rebuttal section for the applicant since there's no public testimony. Does staff or the city attorney have any final comments?
I have no further comments. Thank you, Chair Nye.
I have no further comments either. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we can close the public hearing, and as standard procedure, I will randomly poll commissioners to state their conclusions on the application. I'll start with Commissioner Winter.
Meets of criteria. I'm glad that we got something straightened out so there's a correct order to be maintained. As a side note, I walk by this property a lot because my dog likes to walk down Ellen Boulevard, and I've kind of wondered why nothing's happening. Kind of explains why nothing's happening. Good luck.
Commissioner Glenn-Winkle.
Yeah, I'm surprised that this discrepancy even happened considering how many people touched this. But I'm glad that it was discovered and we were able to get it corrected, so I support it.
Commissioner Ellis?
Yeah, similar feedback as fellow commissioners. Glad to clear up this issue.
And Commissioner Lawler?
Yeah, I will echo the comments of my fellow commissioners.
Okay. So we will now, is there a motion? Commissioner Lawler again?
Sure. Try to be a little more eloquent this time. Based on the facts and findings found in the January 11th, 2023 staff report, the memo that was submitted, letter of comment, and the record this evening, I move that the Planning Commission approve case file LD 2022-0021 with the revised conditions of approval as found in attachment B.
Okay, do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. And is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, I will take a vote by roll call, starting with Commissioner Winter.
Aye.
Commissioner Lawler,
Aye.
Commissioner Glenn-Winkle,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion passes unanimously. The Planning Commission's decision will be memorialized in a land use order that will be provided to all parties that provided oral and written testimony. If you'd like to appeal the decision, you must appeal in accordance with the applicable provisions of the Beaverton Development Code and rules of the Land Use Board of Appeals. Thank you. We have one more item on the agenda, a work session for the Housing Beaverton project. The order of the work session tonight will be as follows. We will begin by the city staff presentation, followed by discussions and questions of staff from the commission. The Planning Commission will then hear public testimony regarding the work session item. Individual comments will be limited to 5 minutes. Members of the public can view the meeting by clicking on the link in the Planning Commission agenda webpage or using webinar ID 161-763-7242, passcode 99999. If you'd like to speak during the Zoom, during the public comment portion of the agenda, please use the raised hand feature in the Zoom menu bar. If calling in using 669-254-5252 number, plus then press 9 to alert the chair who would like to speak. So we will now begin with city staff presentation.
Great, one moment while I share my screen. Okay. Good evening, Chair Nye and Commissioners. My name is Jenna Hughes. I'm an Associate Planner in the Community Development Department. I am joined by Brian Martin, Long Range Planning Manager, and Javier Mena, Affordable Housing Manager, who may also participate in the discussion. We're here tonight to talk with you all about the Housing Beaverton project and get your feedback on the draft potential housing strategies. The purpose of this project is to plan for Beaverton's future housing for the next 20 years and identify strategies to ensure we're meeting everyone's housing needs, as well as address current housing disparities. The Housing Beaverton project has 2 major parts, which are important to make sure we serve both current and future residents. They are also both required by state law. The first phase, the housing needs analysis, assesses current and future housing needs by looking at demographics, future population growth, and how much housing and land we have. The second phase of the project, the housing production strategy, is where we are now. Informed by community feedback, City Council will determine what steps the city will take to make sure we provide needed housing. Community engagement is also a crucial part of this work to understand people's needs and get input on the housing strategies. For the study, we're using an equity framework to ensure we prioritize housing strategies that will result in equitable outcomes. When available, we are looking at data for different racial and ethnic categories to better understand how certain groups may have specific housing needs. We're also acknowledging past racist practices that contributed to current disparities, such as exclusionary zoning and people of color being denied home loans and access to home ownership. This recognizes that not everybody is starting off in the same place. We're also focusing on understanding the needs of people with disabilities, youth, and groups that have been historically excluded from housing or decision-making. Based on what we've learned so far from the housing needs analysis, by the year 2042, we expect there will be 19,000 more people in Beaverton. And if we assume an average household size of 2 or 3 people, that means we'll need about 9,900 more homes to accommodate this growth. Many of these will come from Cooper Mountain and South Cooper Mountain, which is being developed right now, but we'll also need to house people within the rest of the city as well. Some things that we found so far is our housing capacity is limited. South Cooper Mountain will eventually have more than 3,000 housing units once fully developed. We are also currently planning for Cooper Mountain, which has more than 400 acres of developable land. Inside the rest of the city, however, we only have about 40 acres of vacant land for housing. That said, we do have redevelopment potential within the city, including in mixed-use districts and also in residential neighborhoods where we might see some additional housing because of the adoption of the Housing Options Project, which allows for more housing variety. In the summer and fall of last year, we conducted engagement to better understand the community's housing needs. We engaged with a diverse array of community members with a focus on historically excluded and marginalized groups, including people who identify as having a disability, seniors, youth, renters, people of color, immigrants, and refugees. We also considered what we heard through past engagement the city has conducted over the last couple of years through the Housing Options Project, Cooper Mountain, Shelter Code Project, and Affordable Housing Bond implementation. Some general themes we heard are the need for more housing affordability and variety, needing housing that's near transit, jobs, stores, medical care, and green spaces like parks and trails. And in talking with people with disabilities about specific needs, several people responded that requesting reasonable accommodation can be an onerous process and financial assistance is needed to retrofit homes. There's also a need for safety, security, and more ground floor, low income accessible units. On the topic of affordability, since 2010, the average cost of rent has nearly doubled. There's currently a need for more ownership housing at lower price points. Most households in Beaverton cannot afford the homes that have recently sold in the city. The median sale price of homes sold within the last year was $518,000, which many people we know cannot afford. The greatest unmet need is for households making less than $35,000 per year. Neighborhoods most vulnerable to gentrification and displacement also largely correspond with areas with greater numbers of people of color and households with lower incomes, such as in the central and southeastern parts of the city. We estimate that in 2042, about 21% of new households will be very low income or making between $27,000 to $45,000 per year. 14% are estimated to be very low income or making less than $27,000 per year. Low income households currently experience severe shortages in both rental and ownership housing, so we'll need to address this in the housing strategies. And Beaverton is also becoming more racially diverse, with the fastest growing communities of color being people who identify as Asian, Hispanic or Latina, and as two or more races. Communities of color have disproportionately unmet housing needs and limited housing choice due to a history of systemic racism. And large and multi-generational households are also more common in communities of color compared to white households. Larger households may need bigger homes or specific housing types that can serve a greater number of people. Households of color are also less likely to own their homes compared to white households. Latina and Native American homeownership rates are the lowest of all racial groups in Beaverton. Black homeownership is also low. And we also know that this isn't really new news and an urgent need that our community needs right now. But this is something that we're really focusing on for the housing production strategy so we can explore other ways for the city to address this issue. Individuals with a disability are another underserved group. An estimated 12% or 11,300 people currently report having some sort of disability. A similar share of the 2042 population would indicate roughly 14,000 residents with a disability. And that number may be even higher considering our aging population, since approximately a third of our seniors also identify as having a disability. We do not have any data on how many accessible units exist in Beaverton, but we know from engagement there's a significant shortage. And housing needs also vary depending on disability, but we know we need to include some strategies to produce more housing that is accessible. Now, we do have some existing projects and programs at the city to help reduce housing disparities and to make sure people can access the housing they need. Attachment A in your packet includes additional information. Some examples include fair housing education for landlords and tenants, allowing more housing types such as duplexes, triplexes, townhomes in neighborhoods, thanks to the Housing Options Project. The Cooper Mountain Community Plan will allow 5,000 new homes, including some regulated affordable housing in an area with abundant natural resources. And we've also acquired land for housing, such as the Marianne, which was completed in 2021, which includes 54 units for low-income families in downtown Beaverton. We also offer down payment assistance through Proud Ground and the Portland Housing Center, and home repair services and accessibility modifications for low-income homeowners. We also provide rental assistance through community action and partner with nonprofits to serve people experiencing homelessness. Attachment B in your packet includes a list of draft potential housing strategies the city can implement in the future to meet people's housing needs. These strategies are organized according to the State Department of Land Conservation and Development's list of housing strategies. I'm going to talk about these in more detail in the next few slides. In terms of zoning and code changes, potential strategies include zoning changes to allow lower cost housing types, such as micro shelters and sleeping pods, revamping multi-dwelling and mixed-use districts to allow more density, allowing single-room occupancy housing in residential and other areas, creating manufactured housing community preservation zones, creating permit-ready plan sets for middle housing types and accessory dwelling units, mixed housing types in urban growth boundary expansion areas, accessible design incentives or requirements, and code incentives to encourage more multi-generational housing. Reducing regulatory impediments involves removing barriers to developing needed housing. Potential strategies include removing or reducing minimum parking requirements. The city is doing this currently with implementation of the state's climate-friendly and equitable communities rules. We also have flexible regulatory concessions for affordable housing and aligning bike parking requirements with the actual use to prevent overbuilding unused bike parking, holistic planning to distribute new density more equitably, and advocating for changes to facilitate condo ownership, which may provide more opportunities for first-time home buyers. In terms of financial incentives, such as system development charge exemptions or reductions, the city does not have direct control over many SDCs because these are often set by partner organizations such as Clean Water Services and Tualatin Hills Parks and Rec. So for this category, we did not identify any strategies. Financial resources are ways in which we can fund needed housing. Potential strategies for this category include a housing development fund and construction excise tax as a funding source for affordable housing. Category E is tax exemption and abatement. A potential strategy is multiple unit property tax exemption, which is a tool to encourage more multi-unit development. Category F is land acquisition, lease and partnerships. A potential strategy here is public-private partnerships with home builders such as Habitat for Humanity to increase the stock of affordable homeownership options. And category Z is custom options. A potential strategy is increasing engagement with community groups in order to build community capacity and educate folks about housing so that they can access the resources that they need. And we do some of this currently, but this strategy would involve increasing resources in this area. So from now through spring, we're focusing on conducting engagement on the potential housing strategies. And we have a city council work session in February to discuss these strategies. And then we'll come back to Planning Commission for a work session on the revised housing strategies, tentatively April 5th. We'll then have public hearings to adopt both the housing needs analysis and housing production strategy, tentatively June 14th for Planning Commission and August 15th for City Council. So that concludes staff presentation. The questions I have for discussion are, 1, do you have any questions or comments about the draft potential housing strategies? And 2, considering that the state requires the city to have strategies that address all unmet needs, are there any housing strategies that should be modified, added, or removed from the list? And are there any that are higher priority? Thank you.
Okay. Do any commissioners want to start? Commissioner Ellis.
Yeah, hey, first of all, that was fantastic. And as someone new to the commission on a relatively hot topic like this, it's really cool to see how the sausage gets made and how many things are in progress and being thought about and all that kind of fun stuff. So thank you for running through that content. Question, do we, I didn't see anything specifically in the amendments, or sorry, in the attachments, either in the current or the proposed, about the impact of rentals, specifically institutional real estate investors and other investment property searchers who are creating a rentals market, and how rentals play into the math of available homeownership and any impact that that may have over that same kind of time horizon, that 10-year horizon.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's a great question. I might ask if Brian or Javier has any thoughts on this.
Yeah, Commissioner, this is Brian Martin, Long Range Planning Manager. See, I was waiting for Javier, but he was too slow on the mute button. Are you basically asking if their institutional investors are buying up houses, individual houses, to rent them out rather than have them for sale?
Yeah, and sorry, I probably should have been more pointed with the question. Yes, that's probably the primary question. I was trying to correlate there's a blurb in here about how rental prices have doubled since 2010, and then looking at the inventory numbers available for the next 10, 20 years or so. Do we see, that doubling is a lot of that is widely believed to be attributed to institutional investors who are doing that at the apartment level as well as the detached home level. So when I think about unmet needs or other strategies, that's what's popping in my head is can or should the city do things affecting the ability of institutional investors to create that kind of environment?
We can look into that a little bit. When we did some market studies during the Housing Options Project, which is the project we did the last couple of years to allow middle housing in the city, I don't recall our real estate consultants actually finding tons of rental housing, rental housing that's individual houses being rented. But we can maybe poke around with economic development and see if they see anything on some databases about how prevalent that is in the city.
Okay, very cool. And just for context, in a former life, I worked for the largest home sharing service online, and had access to data for larger cities. So this may not be applicable to Beaverton proper. It might be more of a Portland thing, but investors such as BlackRock and other groups up until 2021 are responsible for quite abhorrent digits worth of housing purchases that are flipped into rentals. And so just trying to understand if there's an impact in our area, and whether that should be something that we should address. That's where all that's coming from.
Yeah. So I would just thank you, Commissioner. I would also ask, are you putting short-term rentals like Airbnb style rentals in that bucket, or is that a different thing in your mind?
Oh yeah, I guess that could be in the bucket. I think that's probably, and this is conjecture, so apologies. But I think that's probably less pervasive or harmful than the large institutional real estate investment. But it could be in the same bucket. It's certainly in the same theme.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ellis. Javier Mena, Affordable Housing Managers. Just to follow up on that, it's my understanding that, and based on regional studies, that one of the main reasons for the rents going up so high is because of lack of housing. As you may recall, after the housing bust in the 2015s, there was limited development. And so that really created a gap. Not to say that short-term rental, actually in studies have shown that they tend to take away from available rental housing that may be that made available for households to be able to rent, and they find it more lucrative to have it as a short-term rental. But as Brian mentioned, we haven't done any specific studies in the city to really get to that level.
Okay, Commissioner Glenn Winkle.
Yes, thank you. So Commissioner Ellis and I are on the exact same wavelength tonight, apparently, because that was going to be my comment too. I think one of the biggest threats that I've seen to housing affordability across the country is the trend of institutional investors purchasing large single family houses in bulk. And most of these companies are not looking at Oregon right now. They're mostly looking at southern states and states on the East Coast, but that could change. And so I think if we're going to be looking at housing affordability and planning for future growth, I would like to see the city become familiar with this trend and maybe consider some regulations to prevent that from happening in Beaverton, because it really is a serious threat. They can raise so much capital and come in and buy a large number of homes for cash. So homeowners can't even compete. And then when they own enough properties in an area, they can really drive up the rents so people can't afford to rent there either. So it really is a serious threat. And I'd like the city to educate themselves about it and see if we can kind of put something in place to protect ourselves should there become interest in Oregon in the future.
A quick note to that, Commissioner, it's my understanding and some analysis that I have done that Miami is one of those cities that definitely have been in that type of market where a lot of large institutional acquisitions have been done, that there's a greater percentage of rental and some of it unused housing than it is of home ownership.
Do other commissioners have comments or questions? Commissioner Lawless.
I guess I would like to just emphasize my that I am endorsing your comment, the one strategy about applying manufactured housing community preservation zones, because I think that mobile home parks are kind of an overlooked opportunity for affordable units, and any other kind of strategy where you can separate maybe the land costs from the unit costs, and I think of condominiums, for example, as something where a strategy, and that also is in here. I guess I just wanted to emphasize that I really think that that's an important strategy for those folks. And when I was working at Washington County, we had a huge manufactured home park. The land gets sold, and about 250 people had to find new units, new places to live, because the land was being sold out from under them. So I think that it would be a good strategy. I endorse that strategy to make sure that doesn't happen in Beaverton for a couple of the mobile home parks that I can picture in my mind. So that was it.
Any other commissioners? Yeah, I'll give my comments and then if others want to come back. Following up on Commissioner Lawler's mobile home park, I would say I generally would agree with that, except I feel like all the mobile home parks I can think of offhand in Beaverton are in really prime TOD territory. So I really am concerned that we're preserving very low density land use in a really optimal locations. So I wonder if the mobile home parks are within a certain distance of transit, if we should not be preserving them, but if there's a way to put into place requirements for displacement of those owners, if the park were to be redeveloped. I mean, like I said, I generally agree with preserving manufactured home parks or mobile home parks, but I just our land is so finite, and especially along the transit lines, I think we should be careful about that. And along the lines of home ownership, I think something the city could work on is changing the perception of living in multifamily housing. I think the idea of every person having to own their own home on a single family lot is not sustainable. And I would like to see more discussions around that as a community, and just to change how people think about living in multifamily buildings. And then if there's any advocacy around condos, I'm happy to be an advocate and talk to people about that. I think there are a lot of difficulties in getting condo development happening now due to litigation of past years. And so, but we've got to get that unstuck in order for there to be home ownership outside of single family homes. So hopefully we can get something to change. And then other ideas I had. Well, one was on the bike parking comments that were provided by staff. If we're eliminating vehicular parking, I think we should be very careful in reducing our bike parking requirements. I think as they stood 6 months ago, there was the bike parking requirement in Beaverton is high. Definitely, as an architect working through those requirements, it seems like we're having to overbuild a bike room. But knowing like we're now not going to require parking, I could actually see those bike rooms filling up. So I wonder if there's a strategy in like having kind of like a shadow plat or, you know, a future phase plan that shows how you can convert either parking or storage rooms into additional bike parking. Like you don't have to build out all that bike parking up front maybe, but you can show how you can accommodate it down the road. Might be one strategy to, you know, not build out a bunch of bike racks that aren't going to get you to use now, but there's a way to convert it. And then I was also wondering if on affordable housing, if there's a way to relieve the open space requirements for multifamily dwellings when they're within a certain distance of a public park. Like, do you need to build, 15% of your site as open space if you are directly across the street from a major city park? Would that make sense? So looking at maybe some of more development related site, maybe more site specific, but that could be applied across different zones. And then I just wondered if, I assume you have, but I'll ask the question anyway, because I didn't see it in the staff report, whether you've talked to developers specifically about the challenges that they see and if they've seen any places where they could get relief from the city in projects.
Thank you, Chair Nye. To address your question on talking with developers, that's something that is part of the engagement that will be starting this month and next month. We'll have a series of interviews with developers, specifically asking these types of questions on, you know, what's a barrier to development? Given these housing strategies, are these feasible? So yeah, we'll definitely be getting that feedback soon.
Commissioner Ellis, did you have more comments?
Yeah, apologies. I just you had a number of good ones, Chair and you're kind of like making me spark off here, so I appreciate that. Just a couple that if this makes sense, great. If they don't, that's cool too, I guess. So on the SRO call out on the potential recommendations, just a general. It's not a warning. It's just something, a caveat we would want to attach to the exploration of an SRO zoning option or SRO district or whatever you want to call it. Is it from a not in my backyard perspective, when I'm thinking about voters or people who might look at that option, SROs often come with difficult law enforcement opportunities. Thinking about the Old Town area of Portland, thinking about the Tenderloin area of San Francisco, which both traditionally had a significant SRO inventory or SRO users and people who live there in those situations. So whatever, if something comes of the SRO exploration, I would just recommend that we investigate what are the community policing or law enforcement opportunities that potentially need to be attached to that to make it a palatable and worthwhile investment for everybody involved. So that's number one. Following on the manufactured homes feedback, great feedback in terms of those being valuable spaces to house low to middle income people. One note though, in the journey for equity, especially for people of color or underrepresented populations, is that often housing becomes how families build generational wealth or build security over more than one generation. And manufactured homes have the least amount of generational wealth building capability in them, given that their resale value is generally the least of all housing options. So outside of the pure and immediate need to house people, which is yes, like that's the goal. If we went down the manufactured housing route more strongly, we'd also have to figure out, is that more properly a transitional housing situation? Is it a proper long-term housing situation? Do we educate those people about the fact that it is not an equity building style housing situation that can build generational wealth over time? That a lot of people who don't face those same systemic problems, essentially people who look like me, haven't had to suffer from that before. And so I want to make sure the folks who end up in that situation know that that's not the same kind of path to the generational wealth that a quote unquote traditional home can build. On financial incentives, one thing, especially for the middle income and just below middle income, I would imagine that this is going to be the case for the relatively near future, is interest rates. So a lot of financial incentives have to do with either down payment assistance or access. I'm picturing things like the U.S. Agriculture Associations and buying rural homes and stuff. But if you're looking to buy within Beaverton and you're a middle to under middle income earner, the current interest rate environment is pretty destructive to your buying ability. So if there are financial incentives around helping with interest rates, paying for points or something like that to help new home buyers or middle income and lower home buyers access home buying, that can potentially help them get into a home without having to alter or incentivize the price of the home, but by assisting with the interest rate. Those are my notes.
Those are great. Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay. Seeing none, staff, do we have any public comment? I don't think there is anybody out there. There's none. No public comment. We will move on to the conclusion. Any comments from staff or city attorney?
No, thank you all for your comments.
I have no further comments. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks for all your hard work, you guys. With that, we can adjourn for the evening at 7:41 p.m.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank
Good
you.
night,
Good
everyone.
night.
Thank you.